has probably been my challenge with cancer. And it wasn't just a regular cancer, it was a stage 4 advanced cancer to liver and lungs. My diagnosis said with this kind of cancer, it's usually very quick and there isn't a lot of time to prepare. So it would be good to get your affairs in order. I saw this beautiful little animal, little bird just tweeting, and I just stopped and admired the sound. And it's, you just think of these things. There's so many gifts that we take for granted if we're not careful. Obviously, falling down a mountain, you technically are that close to being dead, where your life can be snuffed out very quickly.
Welcome to the Sacred Conversation, and I am Daniela Hascara. Today I have an interview with Trevor Miller and his healing journey. And I'm so excited that you could join me.
Welcome. Thank you very much too. I appreciate being invited to this experience.
Let me ask you, what has been on your journey the key aha moments of some of your experiences?
Wow, huge question. Spirituality for me is unique, I think, to myself, and whether this video would help others, I'm not sure about. Just my own experience is that I've always felt there's something watching and caring for us. And I'm pretty sure it came from my mother giving me my set of prayers to say, because I wanted to say my prayers. I saw the little kids on TV, one of those little kind of Disneyland type shows, kneeling by the side of the bed, and I wanted to sort of learn what that was all about. So I started to say a simple little prayer, and it was, gentle Jesus, meek and mild, look upon this little child, pity my simplicity, and suffer me to come to thee. Well, I didn't really understand what that meant, but I knew the suffer me to come to tea sounded like coming to dinner at night. And the first part, it sort of grew on me slowly about the little children being cared for by Jesus. And it was only as I got older that I knew what I was really saying, but it was a comforting thought just to say my prayers before I went to bed, courtesy of my mum, my dear departed mother. So I think from that point on, I felt there was something extra and big that was everywhere, and I couldn't be sure, but because Mum told me to say my prayers, it was comforting. And my real test came as I got older, when I was actually put to a very frightening life experience. So I continued on my journeys by traveling around overseas, backpacking. And when I was over in, believe it or not, going from Italy through a narrow pass in the Swiss Alps into Switzerland, it's called Col du Ferret. You can probably find it on the map, Ferrat, I believe, Col du Ferret. Anyway, through that narrow mountain pass, I slipped. And just when I was about to go over the edge of this vertical precipice, which turned out to be it looked to me like hundreds, if not thousands of feet deep, I knew at that point, well, this is it. I'm actually getting faster and picking up speed. The trajectory is steeper and steeper. And as I looked under my armpit and saw this is the edge of the cliff I'm about to go over at high speed, I said, dear God, please don't let me die. And I don't think I would have physically called out because there was nobody there. I was alone crossing the Alps. So I just figured, okay, if there's really a God, all this work I've done and praying and asking for higher guidance, this is the big test. Either it's real or it's not, but I'm going to put God to the test, not in a frivolous way, but say, dear God, I said, please, if I can get through this, please put me in, please allow me to work for you. Please let me be your servant. I'll do whatever you need me to do to make up for this, basically clutching me out of the jaws of death, because that was as clear to me as it was that I was going over the edge. I was at high speed. I was accelerating, and there was nothing to stop me, and no one even knew where I was about to disappear, Daniela. So this was as close as I'd ever experienced to certain death. I was about to drop into the vertical. I stopped.
Amazing.
And when I stopped, I kind of figured I'd use my fingernails to tear. I tore off my fingernails trying to grab hold, and I had my face in the dirt, and I picked up a nasty jagged scar with the slate and sharp rock sticking out. But I stopped, and it took me 2 hours to turn over onto my back like in a crab formation and kind of crab my way sideways from the muddy slope to get to a ledge where I could get a grip.
Yeah.
And I was able to open a pocket knife with one hand, which is almost impossible. I still don't know how I was able to get my hand to open the blade, because normally you have to get it and go like that. So, and I couldn't move the counterbalance weight without, because the pack was pulling me over. I had a big heavy pack. I thought I could dump the pack.
My goodness.
But it had everything I had in it, including my passport, my everything. It was like my life support for traveling around. But I felt the fact I'd stopped at high speed, I wasn't meant to die, and I didn't kind of quite believe God would tease me like this, totter on the edge of a precipice. It was kind of like a seesaw, and the backpack was about to pull me a bit more, and then I stopped, and then I started tottering. Every time I moved, it was like the center of gravity would lose, and I'd go a little further. But it was a big tease because I didn't die. 2 hours later, I got out of it. And I thought, well, that was my big test. If God or whatever power, because I believed I was artificially stopped. It didn't feel like a natural deceleration after so much speed towards the edge. It felt like, wow, that was an intervention. And I was laughing like a crazy man over the mountain in the dark. It was dark. I was covered in blood and mud. Got down to the first chalet on the other side, which was really high altitude, knocked on the door, and the landlady slammed the door shut. It was a hostel, like a guest house, Gaston house, whatever it was. But anyway, she slammed the door. She looked like a crazy person, like someone coming in with, like in a movie, you see that white of their eyes and everything's black and blood.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah, I was like something out of a scary movie. Then I said, I need help, but she wouldn't open the door, and she was speaking in, I guess, German. So she said, no, go away. Swiss part of Switzerland. Anyway, I kept going further down, and the landlady, for some reason, there was women opening the doors. She said, oh, come on in. And she said, clean up, I give you a room. And I had a beautiful room, and I showered up, and I dressed my wounds, and she brought me hot tea, and I was all in big soft flat doona, like a big eider-down cover. And in the morning, I looked out the window, and there was those cowbells you see in the typical Heidi and Swiss movies, with a big bell, big doe eyes, looking in through the windows, and I could hear the cowbells in the Swiss pasture. And I got a hitch. I hitched a ride. I went out, and the first car that stopped was this sports car with a beautiful girl in it, and she had long flowing hair. She said, oh, come on, jump in. I'm just going for a nice drive. And she took me all the way down to Interlaken, which was at the base of the mountain, where I was able to continue my travels. But the point of the story is that was my first, I thought, spiritual intervention, where something of such magnificent divine nature had occurred that I couldn't explain it through mere science. That it didn't add up. There was nothing that caught me, it was like a spiritual rope that just sort of slowed me down at the precipice. And I imagine as I was looking down, I thought, wow, how would anyone find me here? I didn't tell anyone where I was traveling. I was expected to be somewhere in that area, but nobody knew where to look. So the body was actually found very close to where that frozen man was about 20 years ago. They found this frozen Neolithic person who was crossing Alps in the similar area, and they obviously fell down and died, and they had all their Neolithic gear, which was like, leather pants and leather like moccasins, and that body, I think, is still in a museum somewhere because it was a remnant of 8,000 BC. And I go, wow, I could have found me as 20th century man in maybe if I had fallen into a glacier and been frozen for another 10,000 years. So, but anyway, I laugh now, but I had frightening memories for years. I would lie in bed and I would relive the whole experience and the thankfulness, the absolute gratitude. And I didn't explain it. As I was going over the mountain in the dark, I was laughing like a crazy man. I had tears of joy coming out my eyes that I'd had this experience.
Definitely a divine intervention. We have these key moments in life where something happens and we don't really know why, and we just suddenly think, wow, there was this knowing, there was this intriguing moment of an experience, and it stayed with us, and we had this aha moment later. How do we have had these insights early on in our life, and then later we understand so much more of the connections of deep trust or belief or knowingness? Where does it come from? What do you think?
Well, I know where it came from. For me, it was my introduction to the possibility that there was great power in saying prayer, and it was very comforting. And as you little kid, you get into trouble at school, or kid picks on you, or you feel like you're a bit alone, haven't got any friends, or something like that. And you can crawl into your warm little bed and grab your teddy bear and say your prayers, and somehow all things were forgiven. And I used to have that great sense of that there was always that presence, and it wasn't anything spiritual that I could say I'm spiritual. It was just a simple little child believing, like they believe in Santa Claus, and I believed in tooth fairies, and why couldn't I believe in Jesus and God looking after me? It was in that category. Just another wonderful, heartwarming story that was in my heart and made me feel happy. But as I got older, I started to separate when I found out the truth about a lot of those things, that God and Jesus and the stories from the Bible were a little more significant because they didn't fall away when all the other little tales fell away. And I did go to Sunday school as a child because I wanted to win the book at the end of the year by having the most attendance. So I made sure I went to all my Sunday schools. But I did pick up the fact that I enjoyed colouring in pictures and learning stories and remembering the names of all these famous people from the Testament, Old and New, plus Jesus. And so the big test came for me, I think. I did have a yearning to really get to the heart of the matter. So I became baptized. Well, when I was a baby, I was unconscious of it, but I became consciously baptized as a young adult when I was about 18. And I remember being immersed in front of a full congregation in a basically naked in a bath on the stage, covered in a white robe, and the pastor dunked me and blessed me like as was done by John the Baptist. And I thought, well, if this gives me the awareness, I'm up for it, even though it was a bit embarrassing because by the time you're 18 or 17, that's upper high school, most of the kids are acting cool and getting drunk and having sex and doing all kinds of things, which is not going to church or wanting to find out the truth of God or spiritual nourishing understanding. So I was like basically one of the few kids that were in that category of wanting to learn more. So I knew I had a certain inkling in that direction. Well, I spoke in tongues, which, and I don't want to put down anyone that speaks in tongues, but I think even though I could speak in tongues, it wasn't giving me a sense that I got the sacred knowledge.
Do you think that this gave you trust on an even deeper level, that something bigger is guiding you and something bigger is watching over you? Is that what you're feeling?
Well, that was 18 when that happened. No, actually, I have to be careful now, my age. It was 1970s. Oh, it was 20. I was 20 years of age. So I felt like I left home when I was 18, but I was 20. But the point of my experience was it just made me hungry to find out the truth behind the illusion. I thought, okay, I've been to all these different denominations and I've been getting baptized and doing all kinds of other things as well, but I wasn't feeling I had the answer. And one of the answers that I wanted to experience was through experimenting with mind illuminating medicines. And so when I was, fortunately, I came to a place in Amsterdam where I got access to a few of those. And I thought, well, I'll do a little smorgasbord. I won't do them all at once. And it's not because I'm depressed or just wanting to zone out. It's because I really want to get to the bottom of this mystery of what it's all about and how does this thing work. So I experimented, and a lot of the answers I started to come to was it's really about love. It's really about coming to the core illusion and then opening that curtain, and behind it is a giant heart, a beating heart, but not like in a negative way, like the heart of the pulse of all creation. Like, so I was feeling in a very, an initial way that was the secret, but I couldn't be sure. So one of the things I did discover was that Tantra, which was to me the sacred, there's many interpretations and everyone has a different spin on it, but I just felt that when you have a high libido, which is a sexual energy, and you have it in a way in a partnership, or you could have it alone, but it's usually helpful when you have it with a partner, because then you can share this sacred cosmic orgasm in a way that opens up all of the chakras, or whatever you want to call it. It makes you feel very expressive of connection to source. That was how I interpreted my experiences. And I found a partner that wanted to experience that. And it was wonderful because we both felt we were in a zone beyond just man and woman. It was like we were going into the zone. And and when we both could consciously feel it in that time and place, it made me realize, wow, I'm actually not imagining this, because they're also sharing that same experience back. I didn't go as far as some of the great tantric masters that could almost, I don't know, go into places for days and weeks and just kind of live in that zone. It was almost like a taste of the mystery, and then it went away. And until I had another tantric connection of that nature, I couldn't quite get that experience. And so I did become a devotee of learning from various tantra teachers. And then I went beyond that even, I think, where I realized that when you take more sacred medicine, and this time for me it was ayahuasca, you can have that experience and even go a little bit into a place that takes you into cosmic states.
Experiences who are in divine states with yourself and with a beloved. I think one has to be able to have experiences first, the ability of going there within themselves.
For me, it was a little bit the other way. I felt that I was seeking when I was alone. And when I was in divine partnership, I was reaching that place intermittently. And then when I became single, I realized that I wanted to hold that frequency. And one of the ways I learned to hold that frequency was with ayahuasca, which I've only done 3 times. And the last time was in New York 10 years ago, 12 years ago now, I guess. And after that time, I'd still probably be open, but I didn't want to become someone that has to keep seeking that means to reach that divine place. I thought, in fact, I'd say the New York experience was the most amazing, and I'm adding on other things like ecstasy and others, but with the New York experience, I came to the conclusion that all I need to do is remember the frequency of what it is to be in divine, sacred, cosmic union with the source. And it's not even words. It's basically feeling love. It's just a great emanation of love. For me, my experience was it's love in here, and everything outside is really an outpicturing of the greater sense of myself. And I'm speaking from my point of view, and I imagine other people would also have their own sense. But I could actually look up in my medicinal heightened state and see the stars like giant colored orbs in the sky, and I go, wow, look at that. Now this was in the heightened state. I was inside in a safe place. But in my state, I reached out and got closer until I could pluck the stars, and I go, my goodness, they're like giant Christmas lights. Look at these magnificent big colorful stars. And as I was plucking them, I realized, wait a minute, these look like the ends of fingers, like colored lights on the ends of fingers. What the hell is going on? And I started to follow where the fingers were joined, and it was this hand. It was like cosmic, like the stars of the Milky Way and beyond. And then the hand became the arm, which was almost like beyond the Milky Way. And then I started to get a sense that this is me looking at myself. And it was such a blissful awakening. And I woke up holding that realization that I'm looking at myself. And I shared it with the group when we had our little check-in session. And I realized that who needs to keep taking journeys? You just stay in the frequency that I am looking at myself, and everyone and everything is a divine outpicturing of me, which is love.
Trevor, in all of these experiences you're sharing, I have a sense of using certain medicine always has been for you deeply inspired by the search to becoming more aware of yourself. And those
always.
Yeah. Always,
not,
yeah.
Maybe not always, but 90, I'd say 90%.